Welcome to the fiscal year 2024 CSBG Annual Report webinar series, Understanding the Tribal Annual Report and Tribal Annual Report short form. I'm Nikki Frazier-Curry, and I will pass it along to Minette Galindo to provide a welcome. Thank you.
Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you, Nikki. As Nikki shared, my name is Minette Galindo, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as the Policy, Data, and Evaluation Branch Chief for the Division of Community Assistance, where we administer the Community Services Block Grant. I bring greetings from our Office of Community Services Leadership Team, including Dr. Laniqua Howard and our Deputy Director, Janelle George, and the rest of the Division of Community Assistance Leadership Team, including our Division Director, Sharice Johnson, and my colleague, Verna Best, the Program Operations Branch Chief. We are so excited to virtually welcome the Tribal CSBG Network to today's webinar as we explore understanding the Tribal Annual Report and Tribal Annual Report short form to meet the requirement of direct funded CSBG tribes and tribal organizations submitting their fiscal year 24 Tribal Annual Report on March 31st, 2025. Through one-on-one meetings between CSBG tribal grant recipients and federal staff, as well as communal gatherings such as the annual tribal meeting, we continue to learn about the needs and the incredible achievements of CSBG tribal grant recipients and the people they serve. It is my hope that today we can bask in the success you all have had in performance and touching the lives of many, provide you with timely updates for national performance reporting, set out our plan for the FY24 report, lay out the tools available to you, and answer your questions. This webinar will cover a great deal of exciting developments, changes, and tips to help you all tell the story of how CSBG funding is used to support tribal members. I firmly believe one of the rich elements of tribal self-determination is the infusion of storytelling through data. The stories you all hear each day and your role serving your members is vital to amplifying how tribes are enriching lives. Example of this work is leveraging partnerships and community engagement, like the Ponca tribe of Nebraska, where they saw the need for services with their elders and leverage partnerships across tribal governments to provide assistance to Ponca families, including rental assistance, food assistance, and emergency support. Or it's the Fairbanks Native Association in Alaska, who partnered with Tanana Chiefs Conference to ensure that the unhoused in their village had the necessary materials to brave the winter, like sleeping sacks, winter clothing to stay warm, and emergency materials. They partnered with private companies like Bamba to get donations for basic hygiene needs. It's stories like these that start with a need, and then you have that beautiful tribal self-determination applied that produce these incredible stories that we then extract data to share and amplify the work happening each day. My hope is that you all get the support you need to capture this information to not only meet the requirements of the CSBG Act, but to highlight how incredibly vital this work is. So I thank you all today, and I now am pleased to introduce you to your presenters. Next slide, please. Along with myself, there'll be two additional presenters for today's webinar. Charles Cheer serves as a statistician on the Policy, Data, and Evaluation team, and is also the Data and Evaluation Specialist for Regions 3 and 10. He is our lead for our CSBG Tribal Data and Evaluation efforts. His previous work history includes working with children and family of the Tanahata Autumn Nation. He also serves as a data and evaluation specialist across the two regions previously mentioned. Nikki Frazier-Curry is a senior record specialist who is a critical element of us getting all of these training and technical assistance materials out to you all through our website and our social media platforms so that it's available on demand. I'm going to pass it along to Charles to go over today's agenda and walk you all through the CSBG Tribal Annual Report. Charles?
Thanks, Minette, for the welcome and introducing us. Today, I'll give a brief overview of OCS. Then I'll move on to the CSBG Tribal Annual Report, which should take most of the time. After that, Nikki will discuss accessing OLDC. Lastly, I'll briefly cover training and technical assistance resources. Toward the end of the webinar, we'll spend time going over questions that you may have asked. As a reminder, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please utilize the Q&A function on Zoom. There should be a Q&A or question and answer button on the Zoom menu toward the bottom of your screen. Before we dive in, we want to ground the space in the charge we all have and share under the law. As for CSBG priorities, the Office of Community Assistance, OCS, of Community Services, OCS, Division of Community Assistance, DCA, partners with states, territories, tribal organizations, communities, and community action agencies to eliminate the causes of poverty, increase self-sufficiency of individuals and families, and revitalize communities. This is our true north and the center of our discussion. This report gets to our goal of reducing poverty across 99% of the counties in the US, how we are investing in the communities with low income across the nation, and how we are empowering millions of individuals and families with low income. More generally, the Office of Community Services has 4 overarching priorities for CSBG and all the grants and programs we offer. Our first priority is administering high-quality programs that reach those most in need. We aim to lift up voices from the field or communities. Wherever possible, and if it helps improve services, we implement cross-cutting initiatives. Lastly, we can't do our work alone or in silo. Therefore, we also amplify connections to administration priorities. Our work should also be guided by PEAK. PEAK is a framework or compilation of concepts, methods, and resources for administering CSBG programs. PEAK is a framework that lists the many tools we have at our disposal to be good stewards of the resources made available through CSBG funding, so we can ultimately win the war over poverty. How are each of the elements or categories of the framework defined? What do they mean? Performance. This category focuses on resources that administrators use to shape services that will be performed as part of the program. Evaluation. This category focuses on resources that administrators use to assess services and programs. Accountability. This category focuses on tools that helps administrators meet compliance requirements or Section 676 of the public law. Accessibility. This category focuses on resources that can be used to ensure access to programs and services. Knowledge. This category focuses on resources that can be used to improve our knowledge of programs and services. In each category, we visually show that some components are in bolded font and some components are not bolded font. The components that are not bolded font, such as the American Customer Satisfaction Index survey under the performance category, may represent standardized and structured information that enables us to describe a national picture of performance across tribal grant recipients. The components in bolded font, such as community-defined outcomes under the performance category, enables us to understand the uniqueness of strengths, needs, and achievements of each tribal grant recipient. It may also better equip OCS to hear from you about culturally relevant efforts of your tribe or tribal organization's work and the communities you serve. Weaving these together, it empowers us to tell the CSBG story, or rather, in the plural, the CSBG stories of tribes and tribal organizations. We will now give an overview of the CSBG Tribal Annual Report. On April 22nd, 2024, OCS announced a public comment period through the Federal Register on proposed revisions to the current CSBG annual report, as outlined in ACF-OCS-CSBG-DCL-24-15, CSBG annual report and PRA clearance process updates. This public comment period included the Tribal Annual Report 3.0 and Tribal Short Form. Both were approved by OMB on August 8th, 2024. CSBG tribal grant recipients are required to complete either the Tribal Annual Report or Tribal Annual Report Short Form. This requirement includes tribal grant recipients that received direct funding between October 1st, 2023 and September 30th, 2024, but changed to a 477 program this fiscal year. CSBG Tribal Annual Report is required for CSBG direct funded grant recipients receiving $50,000 or more in annual funding. CSBG Tribal Annual Report Short Form is required for CSBG direct funded grant recipients receiving less than $50,000 in annual funding. We may also refer to it simply as a tribal short form. The aim of offering two reports by funding amount is to reduce burden in an equitable manner for tribes and tribal organizations receiving CSBG funding. Again, it should be noted the annual report due on March 31st, 2025 are for tribes and tribal organizations that received direct funding from October 1st, 2023 through September 30th, 2024. The submission of the annual report is part of a cycle for tribal grant recipients. We are currently in the evaluation and reporting phase, which is when we are getting ready to collect the annual report. As you may be aware already, for example, the tribal plan is due toward end of the federal fiscal year. That is a different phase. CSBG funded tribes submitting either fiscal year 24 CSBG Tribal Annual Report or Tribal Short Form should plan to include an account of how funds were spent on the delivery services, information on the way the CSBG program met its goals and objectives, information on the way CSBG funding was mobilized to meet goals and objectives, information on CSBG accomplishments, and outcome of the data that addresses progress toward the implementation of the CSBG national goals. These elements together helps tell the story of the incredible work done by CSBG tribal grant recipients. It by no means captures everything that you do, but our hope is that it allows some recognition of it. The major difference between the Tribal Annual Report and Tribal Short Form is that the full Tribal Annual Report requires information on the number of tribal members served. Tribal grant recipients that are required to use the Tribal Short Form will not need to provide information on the number of tribal members served. We'll go into more detail about this in the forthcoming slides. All of the resources to support the submission of FY24 CSBG Tribal Annual Report can be found in an action transmittal for the CSBG Tribal Annual Report submission FY24, which is hosted on the CSBG website. The action transmittal includes links for the following: FY24 CSBG Tribal Annual Report fillable PDF tool, FY24 CSBG Tribal Short Form fillable PDF tool, reporting by allocation list, CSBG Tribal Annual Report OLDC instructions. For your convenience, we created the reporting by allocation list to show which tribal grant recipients should use the full Tribal Annual Report or the Tribal Short Form. Reminder that this applies to those that received direct funding from October 1st, 2023 to September 30th, 2024. If you have any questions, you may contact your assigned data and evaluation specialist. As we have done in previous years, we provide a document with extensive instructions on how to submit the CSBG Tribal Annual Report through Online Data Collection System, OLDC. We'll go into further detail about OLDC toward the latter part of this webinar. Just as a reminder, you must submit the FY24 CSBG Tribal Annual Report by March 31st, 2025 via OLDC as an attachment, and emphasizing that those required to submit are tribes and tribal organizations that receive direct funding from October 1st, 2023 to September 30th, 2024. Okay, it's time for a quick knowledge check based on what we just covered. In the chat, please answer the following question. A tribal grant recipient should only use the tribal short form if they receive A, more than $1 million in annual funding, B, less than $50,000 in annual funding, C, $50,000 or more in annual funding, or D, any amount in annual funding. I'll give folks a couple of seconds to try to answer this. Okay. So the correct answer is B, less than $50,000 in annual funding. We will now walk you through the tool designed to collect the information for the Tribal Annual Report. All CSBG Tribal Grant recipients must complete the CSBG Annual Report using the fillable PDF tool. Remember that there are two versions of the Annual Report and therefore two fillable tools, Tribal Annual Report and Tribal Short Form. CSBG Tribal Annual Report is required for CSBG direct funded grant recipients receiving $50,000 or more in annual funding. CSBG Tribal Short Form is required for CSBG direct funded grant recipients receiving less than $50,000 in annual funding. Please use only one according to your allocation level. Both CSBG Annual Report fillable PDF tools are organized to comply with federal requirements. Be sure to download the fillable PDF tool and save a copy on your computer. Loss of data will occur if the tool is not downloaded, saved, and opened in Adobe. Saving a working copy allows you to modify as needed. Quick Adobe tip. Be sure to download the PDF tool in Adobe. You will note the fillable fields are outlined in red in Adobe. If the fields are not outlined in red, you will not be able to save or edit the document. The PDF fillable tools correspond to the Tribal Annual Report format, which includes Module 1, Tribal Administration, Module 2, Tribal CSBG Expenditures, and Module 3, Individual and Family, which are, as we shared earlier, more information about those served. As we walk through these sections, we will also share tips for how to validate or confirm your data is correct as you and your staff are completing the report. The following section will cover Module 1, Section A, Tribal Administration. Items A.1a to A1.e. Module 1, Section A, Tribal Administration is comprised of those items. This section should be fairly easy. You'll provide the name of tribe or tribal organization that received funding. You'll also provide the CSBG program contact name, who is likely the tribal administrator or tribal chairman, whoever was listed on the tribal state plan as the primary contact. Please also provide their title, telephone number, email address, and fax. This should mirror the previously submitted tribal plan. Reminder, once you've completed this section, please remember to save your document to prevent losing information. Okay, time for another quick knowledge check. In the chat, please answer this question. A tribal grant recipient must provide their website information. True or false? I'll give folks a few seconds to answer this. Okay, so the correct answer is false. All right. The following section will cover Module 2, Section A, Tribal CSBG Expenditures, which details how the allocations were spent to serve those in the community. In previous years, tribal grant recipients were asked to report budget and expenses to deliver services in the annual report. This year, tribal grant recipients are asked to only report expenses or expenditures in the annual report. The overarching question of this section is, how did you spend CSBG funds to deliver services? Please fill out expenditures by the following domains: employment, childcare, early childhood, youth development, and adult education; income and asset building; housing; health and nutrition; civic engagement and community involvement; transportation; partnerships, linkages, and coordination; and other. The PDF fillable tool will auto-calculate and total the expenditures. Lastly, please report the total amount used for administration in A.3. To validate this information, a key thing to remember is the amount should match the amount allocated unless there are special circumstances. For example, if the tribe received $1 million, but the total is $1.7 million in what you entered, there may be an error in the way the funds were listed in the report that require an additional look. A quick Module 2 reminder. The reporting timeframes for all information in the Tribal Expenditures module is based on the federal fiscal year, which is October 1st, 2023 to September 30th, 2024. We'll now move on to Module 3, Section A, Individual and Family. The services in Module 3, Section A, Individual and Family, correspond with the expenditures domains covered earlier, excluding other. The services are, again, employment, childcare, early childhood, youth development, and adult education; income and asset building; housing, health and nutrition; civic engagement and community involvement; transportation; partnerships, linkages, and coordination. These services are based on slight adjustments from the previous version of the Tribal Annual Report. There are services that remain, but have been adjusted to be more commensurate with the last few years of data collected, updated research on anti-poverty strategies, and outcomes related to economic mobility. A key tip for validating is ensuring you have provided details that quantify the work in some way. So including the number of people that participated in a service, such as the number of youth receiving a meal, or the number of appliance repairs. Success stories of outcomes such as an individual obtaining a job. Please keep in mind that you should avoid including personally identifiable information, such as the name of an elder that received medication, or the names of children that were bused to school. I'll now go over each service. Service 1 is employment. This includes, but is not exclusive to, job development and job placement, vocational and skills training, and programming aimed toward eliminating barriers at work. The form is designed to capture narratives, so if you host a job fair with the local Boys and Girls Club and 120 tribal members attended, detail the fair, the partnerships, and quantify it with outlining how many people attended or achieved an outcome, such as a job interview or a job placement in the form. The report was intentionally designed to be flexible so the tribe may utilize their tribal informed practices to report on their activities. Service 2 is childcare, early childhood, youth development, and adult education services. This includes, but is not exclusive to, adult education, literacy programs, scholarships, child development and Head Start enhancement programs, anti-drug education, and youth development programming. A hypothetical example could be San Carlos Apache offering youth leadership programming at San Carlos or Fort Thomas High School. Service 3 is income and asset building services. This includes, but is not exclusive to, budgeting assistance, tax preparation, tax credit information, medical benefits claims assistance, and savings programs. Service 4 is housing services. This includes, but is not exclusive to, home ownership counseling, loan assistance, land and tenant relations programming, housing assistance, homeless services, and home repair and rehabilitation. A hypothetical example is if CSBG funding were used by Keweenaw Bay Indian Community of Michigan to offer counseling for their rental and homeowner programs. Service 5 is health and nutrition services. This includes, but is not exclusive to, food banks and food delivery services, food production programs, health education and counseling, transportation to health services, and community garden programs. A hypothetical example could be if CSBG funding was used by Nooksack Indian Tribe to conduct health education related to the Community Health Fund program, which is meant to fill healthcare gaps. Service 6 is civic engagement and community involvement services. This includes, but is not exclusive to, partnerships with tribal and local agencies, housing authorities, private foundations, and other public and private partners, or programs to help low-income families and individuals achieve greater participation in the affairs of their communities. A hypothetical example is if Klamath Tribe decided to use CSBG funding to empower community members to volunteer for the Healing Winds program, which assists Native American victims of certain crimes. Service 7 is transportation services. This includes all transportation related activities such as transportation vouchers, public transit fare assistance, medical transportation services, community shuttle services, and rideshare programs. Service 8 is partnerships, linkages, and coordination services. This includes activities related to information referrals, eligibility coordination, and case management, linkages and coordination between anti-poverty programs, and coordination with other public and private sources. A quick reminder about Module 3, Section A. If you did not provide a service in one of the core service areas, please indicate NA for not applicable in that section. Now that we have reviewed each service in the Tribal Annual Report, let's do a quick knowledge check together. In the chat, please answer the following question. Which of the following is not a service domain in the Tribal Annual Report? Is it A, health and nutrition, B, transportation, C, political lobbying, or D, housing? I'll give a few seconds for folks to answer. Okay, so the correct answer is political lobbying. Great job, everybody. We'll now go over Module 3, Section B, All Characteristics Report. I want to give a reminder about the Tribal Annual Report versus Tribal Short Form before we go into details with this section. CSBG Tribal Grant recipients are required to complete either the Tribal Annual Report or Tribal Annual Report Short Form. This requirement includes tribal grant recipients that receive direct funding between October 1st, 2023 and September 30th, 2024, but changed to a 477 program this fiscal year. CSBG Tribal Annual Report is required for CSBG direct funded grant recipients receiving $50,000 or more in annual funding, whereas CSBG Tribal Annual Short Form is required for CSBG direct funded grant recipients receiving less than $50,000 in annual funding. This section, All Characteristics Report, only applies to tribal grant recipients that must complete the Tribal Annual Report. Tribal grant recipients that use the Tribal Short Form do not have to fill this section. This section does not appear on the Tribal Short Form. The All Characteristics Report has three main components to describe individual level characteristics. Tribal grant recipients are able to describe the number of individuals served by their gender, military status, and work status. A special note, the decision to include military status was recognizing the fact that tribal members serve in the military at a higher than average rate when compared to the rest of Americans. And a quick reminder again that the section we just covered, All Characteristics Report, only applies to the Tribal Annual Report and not the Tribal Short Form. I'll now go ahead and pass it on to Nikki to discuss OLDC access.
Thank you, Charles, for providing such a detailed overview. All CSBG grant recipients must submit their annual report through Grant Solutions via the Online Data Collection System, OLDC. Next slide. Be sure to test your OLDC account prior to submitting to confirm your login credentials are up to date. It is very important that you do this as soon as possible. If you experience any issues, please email csbgdata@acf.hhs.gov. This is our dedicated email address for addressing any issues with OLDC. I'll now review ensuring OODC access. To ensure OODC access, CSBG current administrators, please use your username and password to log in through login.gov. For new CSBG administrators, you should verify that you are able to log in. And if not, you will follow the process for getting a new account through Grant Solutions by completing the recipient user account request form and the OODC access form. Links to those forms are in the step-by-step guide, which we will review shortly, and must be submitted to Grant Solutions, the Grant Solutions Help Desk for processing. OCS is not able to create new accounts. Grant Solutions is the platform on which to submit your CSBG Tribal Annual Report. Follow the instructions in the step-by-step guide under Accessing Online Data Collection, OODC, to log in to OODC via Grant Solutions. Once you've selected OODC and Grant Solutions, you will be on the OODC homepage. The regular view is the default. However, we suggest that you switch to Homepage Enhanced to access the dashboard and have better functionality. In the upper right-hand corner, click Switch to Homepage Enhanced. Click Yes on the pop-up to set your default view. We'll now take a moment to go over the step-by-step guide. One moment. Sorry about that. Okay, you should be able to see that. Thank you for your patience. On the step-by-step guide, we have the table of contents. You may navigate through the guide by clicking on any of the topics to jump to that section. We did a brief overview of requesting new accounts and updating accounts on the pages II and III, as well as logging into Grant Solutions and switching from the regular OODC homepage view to the enhanced view on page 1. So I will jump to accessing the Tribal Annual Report. First, you will click on Report Form Entry. On the form selection screen, enter CSBG, your tribe or tribal organization, and the report name, Tribal Annual Report, Tribal Annual Report. Next, hit the plus sign on the row for FY24, which is 10/1/2023 through 9/30/2024. It is very important to select the correct reporting period to ensure your submission is properly received. The Tribal Annual Report cover page is read-only and does not allow for edits. To attach your Tribal Annual Report or Tribal Annual Report short form, click on the paperclip under number 10 at the bottom of the page. Do not use the View Add Attachments button to attach your annual report. On the cell level attachments pop-up, click Choose File to show the files available on your computer. Click Attach File once selected. Click Close. If you have other documents you wish to attach, repeat the steps It may take a few moments for your attachments to appear as the system will perform a scan. Once you've uploaded all of your attachments, you will click Validate. Validate checks the system for any errors. Once you validate it, the Submit button will appear and you will click Submit. After you hit Submit, there will be a pop-up that says this will officially submit your report. You will click OK to continue. Then you will receive a pop-up display saying that we have received your report. You will click OK to close your report. I will now turn it back over to Charles so he can complete the presentation for today. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you, Nikki. We will now go over some resources to assist you in completing the Tribal Annual Report. As described earlier, all the resources to support the submission of the FY24 CSBG Tribal Annual Report can be found in an action transmittal for the CSBG Tribal Annual Report Submission FY24, which is hosted on the CSBG website. Again, the action transmittal includes links for the following: FY24 CSBG Tribal Annual Report Fillable PDF Tool, FY24 CSBG Tribal Short Form Fillable PDF Tool, Reporting by Allocation List, and CSBG Tribal Annual Report OLDC instructions, which is what Nikki had just covered. For your convenience, we created the reporting by allocation list to show which tribal grant recipients should use the full tribal annual report or the tribal short form. And as we have done in previous years, we provide a document with extensive instructions on how to submit the CSBG Tribal Annual Report through OLDC. For targeted and general technical assistance, please reach out to your assigned program specialists and data evaluation specialists. We work closely as a team and request that you include both contacts in any outreach. You can find your regional contacts on the pages shared in the chat. Please also note of the FY 2024 Annual Report office hours for the Tribal Annual Report. It will occur on February 11th, 2025 from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Time. More information will be provided as that time approaches. The current slide shown here lists each program specialist and data evaluation specialist by their assigned regions. Thank you, everyone.